We explore the Battle of Okehazama through Ukiyo-e. By the end of this video, you'll see Ukiyo-e and Japanese culture in a whole new light. In 1560, two key powers clashed at Okehazama in Japan. Despite having the advantage, one leader, Imagawa Yoshimoto, suffered a devastating defeat. This Ukiyo-e captures his last moments. With such an introduction, one might assume that the samurai fought as shown in this print. However, Ukiyo-e is not an accurate representation of reality, as we will see. This print, for example, has a background from another time. The prints made by Utagawa Toyonobu 3 centuries after the battle reflect the influence of Western anatomy and represent the westernization of Japan. Artists abandoned old traditions as Japan adopted Western styles. The values of the times are added to this work. Interpreting historical accounts of the battle can also be challenging because they contain speculative details. For example, one description of the weather during the Battle of Okehazama uses the mysterious phrase stone water mixed with rain, which is now speculated to be a hailstorm. Such a storm may have obscured Yoshimoto's vision, leaving him vulnerable to his enemy Oda's attack. Although Yoshimoto reportedly fought back, he was eventually struck from behind and met his end. Furthermore, some of the more exotic customs of the period remain difficult to fully understand. For example, Yoshimoto's head was severed after his death, a practice of great importance to the samurai as professional warriors. What on earth was the purpose of this action? Now, let's explore samurai warfare as depicted in ukiyo-e prints. We'll also shed light on the peculiar practice of headhunting known as Kubijikken and provide cultural insights for non-Japanese viewers. Keep watching! There is some interesting data on samurai warfare. Research on injuries and deaths in Japan between 1467 and 1638 shows that swords accounted for only 4.8% of casualties, serving primarily as auxiliary weapons or weapons of last resort. Arrows, on the other hand, caused 40% of casualties, followed by spears, guns, and, surprisingly, stones, which inflicted a significant number of injuries. These data provide a crucial context for understanding the realities of warfare at the time. The astonishing outcome of Okehazama has inspired generations and permeated various forms of art and entertainment, including ukiyo-e, puppetry, and kabuki theater. 19th century ukiyo-e artists reimagined the battle and created vivid depictions. Many known ukiyo-e show samurai with swords. This reflects the artist's own time, 3 centuries after the battle. In this era of peace, samurai typically wore swords as part of their formal attire, not for combat. This contrasts sharply with the casualty figures, which show the limited role of swords on the battlefield. In addition, these artists likely based their interpretations on popular chronicles, Hoen's tales, that were available in stores. They would not have had access to Gyuichi's chronicle, which was kept in the daimyo's treasury. Much like Renaissance artists' depictions of biblical or mythological figures, ukiyo-e were not intended as historical documentation. Understanding their context deepens our appreciation of both the art and the history they represent. The Battle of Okehazama was shaped by a few key figures, starting with Imagawa Yoshimoto. At that point, he was one of the most powerful influencers in Japan, with the nickname the best archer of the Tokaido region. He was known for his cone-shaped crest. Its design was based on an oracle. Commanding a large and confident army, he launched an invasion of his old enemy Oda's territory. But he was unexpectedly defeated. His death on the battlefield was highly unusual, as commanders rarely combat. There are few portraits of Yoshimoto, probably because he was ultimately the defeated party. Therefore, the portrait cited in Wikipedia in 2024 is ukiyo-e depicted 300 years later. One of the important portraits is a wooden statue in the temple where his family is buried. This statue, believed to be of Yoshimoto as a young man, may have been created by someone familiar with his appearance during his lifetime. Interestingly, Yoshimoto often appears in ukiyo-e prints under alternative names such as Inagawa Uchimoto or Inagawa Yoshimoto. Yoshimoto had once been the superior of a shogun. By treating the characters as fictional, the artists avoided criticizing the shogun, his superior, and the shogunate directly. In the Okehazama Prince, Yoshimoto is always accompanied by two figures who were instrumental in the dramatic turn of the battle. One is Hattori Kazutada, known as the first attacker. He launched the first attack on Yoshimoto and was highly praised for his bravery. The second is Mori Yashikatsu, known as the rear attacker. He struck Yoshimoto from behind and delivered the fatal blow. The exploits of these two warriors, who turned the tide of the battle, have been celebrated in samurai lore for generations. Yoshimoto's opponent is Oda Nobunaga. His family crest, a cross-section of a cucumber, symbolized fertility due to its many seeds. His unconventional ideas had already earned him the nickname of Owari's idiot. As a result, he was distrusted by his vassals, some of whom even defected to Yoshimoto's side. Despite being heavily outnumbered, he led a daring and precise attack on Yoshimoto's main camp. This triumph marked the beginning of his rise, leading to numerous victories and eventually establishing him as a key unifier of Japan. Nobunaga was so influential that many portraits of him were painted after his death. A rare example is this painting, said to have been done by a missionary who knew him. In the 1990s, a photograph of it appeared on a television program sparking public interest. However, the original artwork has been lost, and no conclusive evidence of its authenticity has been found. Ukiyo-e depicts a fascinating anecdote about Nobunaga. According to the legend, a giant cycad tree was brought to his residence from a temple in Osaka. But it began to cause paranormal activity every night. When Nobunaga struck the tree with his sword, blood was said to gush from the wound. Like Yoshimoto, Nobunaga's name was often changed in Ukiyo-e for the same reasons and appears as Oda Harunaga or Oda Harunaga. Nobunaga had also been the superior of the shogun, Tokugawa Ieyasu. Another key figure was Tokugawa Ieyasu, a vassal of Yoshimoto at the time of the battle. He later rose to the pinnacle of samurai power and became shogun. He founded the Edo shogunate, which ruled Japan for 260 years. His family crest was an arrowhead-shaped leaf representing wild ginger, known to be a very tough plant. Because of his sneakiness, people called him Tanuki, which means raccoon dog and is similar to calling someone a sly fox. During the shogunate, criticism of the shogun was forbidden, and direct depictions of the shogun in ukiyo-e were avoided. An example of this is the 1863 print Lord Yoritomo's procession at the Oi River by Utagawa Yoshitsuya. Although ostensibly depicting Minamoto no Yoritomo, the first shogun of Kamakura, it is believed to refer to Tokugawa Ieyasu, the 14th shogun of Edo, traveling to Kyoto. This indirect approach allowed artists to document important events while respecting the restrictions of the shogunate. Speaking of portraits, given the flat, unphotorealistic nature of Japanese painting, how close is this iconic 17th century portrait of Ieyasu to his actual appearance? Interestingly, the current head of the Tokugawa clan is said to bear a striking resemblance to this portrait. If you're curious about this connection, we've included search terms below the video for further exploration. You'll see the striking similarities with a quick search. If you are impressed by the enduring power of DNA or the skill of the painter, please like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. The additional figure often associated with this battle is Toyotomi no Hideyoshi. He would rule Japan before Ieyasu. He rises to the rank of the emperor's regent. As such, he is known to have the Polonia crest, which symbolizes royal servitude. This crest is also used by Yoshimoto, Nobunaga, Ieyasu, and the current Japanese government. His nickname is Monkey, probably because of his appearance. According to the Ahon Taiko Ki, a chronicle detailing Hideyoshi's life, he negotiated with neighboring governors to secure reinforcements for Nobunaga at Okehazama. Hideyoshi is believed to have entered Nobunaga's service around 1554, 6 years before Okehazama. By 1561, a year after the battle, he had risen to a position that allowed him to marry the daughter of a low-ranking samurai. This timeline presents a contradiction. It seems unlikely that he would have been able to negotiate with high-ranking figures such as neighboring governors in 1560. 25 years later, in 1585, Hideyoshi became ruler of Japan and established his own government. Ukiyo-e depictions of Hideyoshi mirror a history crafted by the victors. In this print, for instance, a pre-battle victory prayer at a shrine is depicted, with soldiers viewing the flight of two herons as a favorable omen. Hideyoshi is shown directing their flight, symbolically tying his eventual success to the battle's outcome. However, there is no concrete historical evidence confirming his presence at this event. This painting depicts a battle fought 2 decades before Okehazama, involving Oda Nobunaga's father and Imagawa Yoshimoto. Historical accounts suggest Yoshimoto's forces may have employed firearms in this conflict, potentially influencing Nobunaga's later tactics. Caught between these two powerful forces, Tokugawa Ieyasu's father allied with Yoshimoto, allowing Yoshimoto to extend his regional influence. A key event in this battle was the capture of Nobunaga's brother, leading to a hostage exchange that sent Ieyasu from the Oda to the Imagawa clan. Ieyasu remained under Yoshimoto's control for 13 years, until the day of Okehazama. To counter Yoshimoto's growing dominance, Nobunaga's father forged strategic alliances, laying the groundwork for the future Battle of Okehazama. The next painting captures a moment on the eve of the Battle of Okehazama. Odaka Castle, held by Yoshimoto, was under siege by Nobunaga's forces. To relieve the castle, Yoshimoto led his army towards Okehazama. Following his orders, Tokugawa Ieyasu broke through the enemy lines and successfully delivered supplies to the castle. The painting is particularly interesting because it depicts Ieyasu. During the shogunate, it was forbidden to depict the shogun, but the artist Tsukioka Yoshitoshi, who worked in the post-shogun period, often included Ieyasu in his works. This painting, published in 1875, reflects the new freedom to reinterpret historical figures. Another work by Yoshitoshi shows Ieyasu in command during a civil war in his territory after the Battle of Okehazama. This conflict led to religious divisions among Ieyasu's vassals. Yoshitoshi's prints are notable for their anatomical precision. His work exemplifies the modernization of Japan during the Meiji period, combining Western artistic techniques with historical and legendary Japanese themes. This artistic development reflects the rapid westernization of Japan in the 19th century. The new government embraced modern approaches and discarded the old samurai culture. In the field of war, Napoleon's military strategy replaced Sun Tzu's art of war. In the field of art, Western painting techniques were hastily adopted in place of traditional ukiyo-e techniques. Ironically, within the same time period, Japanese traditional art gained recognition in Europe, giving rise to the Japanism movement. This painting depicts the daring exploits of Maeda Toshie, known as Inuchiyo in his youth. Renowned for his mastery of the spear, he was also known for his fiery temper. In the early days of his service to Nobunaga, he caused an incident that temporarily severed his ties with Nobunaga. He killed a fellow retainer, allegedly in retaliation for the theft of a kogai, a barber's tool and sentimental keepsake, from his father-in-law. This act incurred the wrath of Nobunaga. As a result, Toshihide was suspended. He saw the Battle of Okehazama as an opportunity to redeem himself. He entered the battle without permission and distinguished himself by defeating 3 enemy officers, whose heads he presented as trophies after the battle. However, he was unable to get Nobunaga's forgiveness in this battle. He took part in the next battle of his own volition and once again achieved military success. His determination and skill eventually brought him to prominence. Under the Toyotomi regime, he reached the pinnacle of his career as one of the Tairos, the 5 regents charged with leading the nation. His reputation grew to the point that he was mentioned alongside Ieyasu, the man who would unite Japan. The story finally reaches its climax. Scenes depicting the last days of Imagawa Yoshimoto are presented here, comparing different interpretations and expressions by several painters. This is the work of Migita Toshihide. This piece has a modern dynamic. Lightning illuminates the battlefield and the battle takes place in stormy weather. In the middle of the painting is the first attacker, Hattori Kazutada. These first attackers were promised a high prize if their kill rates were high on the battlefield. As a result, samurais often fought for these positions. On the left, Yoshimoto is shown fighting back with his sword drawn, and if you look closely, you can see that he is being attacked from behind. This is a work by Yosai Nobukazu. In this painting, Yoshimoto is depicted in the middle, exchanging slashes with the first attacker. On the left, Mori Yashikatsu, the rear attacker, is about to strike from behind. He would land the decisive blow on Yoshimoto and achieve the greatest success of the battle. On the right are Nobunaga and Hideyoshi as spectators, with Hideyoshi's symbol, the gourd. Hideyoshi may have taken part in this battle, but there is no clear historical evidence of his participation. Compared to the earlier work, it is a flat composition. It gives the impression of being between tradition and change. This is a work by Tsukioka Yoshitoshi. Yoshimoto is depicted in the center, struggling and being pinned down by the rear attacker. On the right, the first attacker has fallen after being wounded in the knee by Yoshimoto. On the left is Maeda Toshihide, brandishing his spear. He had been suspended but had rushed to the battlefield to help Nobunaga in his time of need. What stands out in this work is Yoshitoshi's versatility. Painted before the dissolution of the shogunate, it uses traditional Japanese methods of depicting the human form. This contrasts with his later works, which adopted Western artistic techniques. This is a work by Yoshichi Kanobu. In this painting, Yoshimoto is depicted in the center, surrounded by enemies and pinned down from behind. On the right, the first attacker falls after being wounded in the knee. On the left, a samurai with a plum crest is fighting. This is Maeda Toshihide, despite his suspension. Behind him is Hideyoshi, recognizable by the gourd that symbolizes him. Of particular interest is the samurai emerging from the right. He bears the crest of the Mori clan, a prominent samurai daimyo in western Japan. The rear attacker, Mori Yashikatsu, coincidentally bears the same surname. While his origins remain unclear, his use of the daimyo crest may be due to the fact that he happens to have the same surname. This painting depicts a scene of negotiations between a lord and his subordinates after a battle. Oda Nobunaga is portrayed on the right, with Toyotomi no Hideyoshi on the left. The event shown is a Kubijikken ceremony, where subordinates present their war achievements, and the lord verifies their authenticity. The evaluation in this process determined the future income and status of each samurai. In this depiction, Hideyoshi is seen appealing to Nobunaga, requesting the reinstatement of his friend Maeda Toshihide as a reward for his contributions. 3 centrally placed cylinders contain the heads of enemy officers, especially those who commanded troops. This scroll painting depicts the identification ceremony of the Takeda clan. In order to verify the identities of the collected heads as those of high-ranking samurai, the lord, officers, those familiar with the enemy, and prisoners of war attended the ceremony. The participants were solemnly dressed in full armor and weapons as if preparing for battle. This served several purposes: to prepare for a potential enemy attack, to honor the fallen, and to guard against a counterattack from the severed heads. The severed heads were believed to possess supernatural powers, capable of moving or causing harm. Therefore, their display followed a strict etiquette. The head's eyes were concealed, and the face was turned to the side to avoid direct eye contact. The lord could only catch a glimpse of them through the slats of a fan. Meanwhile, one inspector held a bow, ready to release an arrow at a moment's notice, and another stood with his sword slightly drawn, ready to strike. This practice may seem bizarre and cruel by modern standards. However, the presence of key figures could significantly influence future events. In an era without photographic or video evidence, collecting heads and making identifications was considered important for accurate verification. The sword probably played a central role in these head-collecting tasks. The collected head was called shukyu. The word combines the characters for neck and class. The practice originated in a Qin dynasty law in China, where the presentation of an enemy's head earned a promotion. Over the course of the next millennium, Japan adopted its own system of identification. When a samurai defeated an officer, he would take not only the officer's head but also his helmet, as it provided crucial evidence for identification and subsequent reward. Samurai typically operated in groups, with one member acting as a witness to confirm the defeated enemy. Without a witness, the head could be dismissed as picked up from the battlefield or even stolen, denying any claim to credit. In the heat of battle, it wasn't always possible to take an entire head. In such cases, the nose and upper lip were taken instead. This practice focused specifically on adult males, identifiable by their mustaches, to the exclusion of non-combatants such as women and children. There were several methods of transporting these trophies, including tying the hair to a waist belt or placing it in a specially designed carrying bag. The memoirs of a nun, Oon Monogatari, describe her experiences of the ceremony preparation. During the Battle of Sekigahara, Oon, a samurai's daughter, was given the task of caring for the heads of the enemies to make them look noble. This task was considered one of the duties of samurai women. She described her experience that although she gradually overcame her fear and got used to sleeping among the heads, she was disturbed by their stench. She would carefully wash away the dirt and blood, fix the hair, and apply makeup, including lipstick and teeth-blackening dye, to give the heads a more lifelike and dignified appearance. It should be noted that some upper-class samurai of the time, such as the nobility, painted their teeth black as a sign of status. At a time when dental hygiene was poor, teeth blackening could hide malocclusions and discoloration, and the dye had a preventive effect against bad breath and tooth decay. These types of makeup were also used on the living. Some high-ranking samurai would apply makeup and perfume to their hair when they went into battle, in case their heads were taken by the enemy. This is said to show respect for the enemy, who, if handling their head post-battle, would not have to contend with an ugly face or a bad smell. Once prepared, the head was placed on a pedestal and presented to the lord, such as Nobunaga. Offerings such as alcohol were made for the head, followed by requiems that were performed by the monks present. Therefore, these ceremonies were usually held in temples. The temple where Yoshimoto's ceremony recorded Nobunaga's army capturing about 3,000 heads at the Battle of Okehazama. The most prized trophies were the heads of enemy commanders. In this battle, Yoshimoto's head was taken by the rear attacker, Mori Yashikatsu, who later became a close associate of Nobunaga. Notably, one of the prestigious awards was given to the first warrior to take an enemy's head, regardless of the fallen enemy's rank. Those who initiated attacks were also highly regarded. Hattori Kazutada, who was credited with the first attack on Yoshimoto, was rewarded. He was eventually promoted to the rank of daimyo. Subsequent rewards were given to those who supported the first attack, those who defeated numerous enemies, those who hunted down retreating enemies, and so on. These incentives fueled fierce competition for enemy heads, motivating soldiers to actively engage in combat. The casualty data presented earlier in this video was compiled from these combat performance reports. Therefore, it's important to note that some reports may be missing from this data, and some casualties may have gone unreported. After the leader's death at Okehazama, Yoshimoto's forces still outnumbered Nobunaga's. The situation deteriorated rapidly. Yoshimoto's soldiers lost their employer and thus their motivation. Moreover, they were forced to leave the battlefield quickly as enemies would arrive to claim rewards for defeating the retreaters, as mentioned earlier. The loss of a single leader thus precipitated the collapse of a large army. The following day, they examined Yoshimoto's head, prayed for his soul, and respectfully placed it in a container. Subsequent negotiations between Nobunaga and Yoshimoto's surviving retainer secured the return of his lord's remains to the retainer. You can delve deeper into the Battle of Okehazama in other videos linked in the description. Part 1 outlines the course of the battle and its key events, while Part 2 explores unsettled issues and the system of samurai armies. Be sure to check them out. They provide additional context and enrich what you've learned from this video. Utagawa School. In this video, we have seen some of the key figures of the Utagawa school, a dominant group in the world of ukiyo-e. A notable tradition among its artists is the practice of henki, in which a student takes a character from his master's name and incorporates it into his own initial. This reflects the master-disciple relationship in the school. By tracing these names, we can discover their artistic lineages and mutual influences. Another tradition, known as tori-ji, involves the inheritance of a character within a family line, such as passing it from grandfather to grandson. However, there are exceptions to this practice. He inherited his name from two masters but did not follow the tradition. Known for his eccentricity, he was famously divorced 40 times and moved 117 times, surpassing even Hokusai. Understanding the cultural context behind such stories can provide deeper insights into the art. We explore these naming customs further in our video on Tokugawa Ieyasu. There's a rich cultural world out there that you'll never know about. If you're interested, be sure to check it out as well.
Help motivate us to make more videos by liking and subscribing. Thank you for watching!